Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about the Pathless. In the Pathless, you assume the role of a nameless woman who comes to an island that is covered by corruption. You soon find out that the corruption is caused by this demon named the Godslayer. This land used to be protected by a bunch of these giant animal spirits. I think they're called the Tall Ones. And you are quickly aided by the mother of all of these tall spirits, an eagle who will aid you throughout the journey. Basically, the idea is you are going to be going to sections of this island that are covered in corruption, and you need to purify these three giant towers, these obelisks. Then you need to purify the corrupted animal spirit to purify that section of the island. In order to purify these obelisks, you need to acquire a certain amount of these metals that are scattered throughout the island, and these metals are mostly acquired by solving different kinds of puzzles. The woman's weapon of choice is a bow and arrow. She's a hunter, and you are going to be basically running across the land using this bow to shoot these floating talismans that are all over the place. And whenever you shoot one of these talismans, you are going to increase your running meter that will allow you to navigate across this island at a lot greater speed. If you don't have any of this meter filled up, you are going to go so slow. And this island is so vast and everything is so spread apart that you pretty much are required to be constantly shooting these talismans to refill your running meter. Also, every time you shoot one of these talismans, it'll give you an extra little boost of speed. And as you play through the game, you are going to encounter a couple different talismans. Like one will give you an even greater boost of speed, and one will like shoot you straight up into the air. It's kind of a cool traversal system, at least at the beginning, because you are constantly having to aim and shoot at these talismans while you are running around and navigating throughout the island. The aiming is pretty mindless. You're pretty much going to automatically target the thing that's most in front of you, and it will show you in a little icon to show you like what target you're aiming at. Obviously, you won't want to fire your bow if there's like tree trunks in the way of the talisman. So there is some timing involved here, but as far as aiming, you're not required to really think about it. I say it's really interesting at the beginning only because after maybe an hour's worth of playthrough, it just feels like a little more of a tedious step in order to navigate throughout this island. Because seriously, a lot of this island is just wide open plains with nothing but these floating talismans all over the place. And I feel like this game would have benefited a little more either giving us a greater movement speed when we shoot these talismans and we're running and sliding and shooting them all over the place, or maybe tighten up the island a little bit so there's not so much vast emptiness with nothing to see. That's not to say that exploration is discouraged here. When you first encounter this island, you will get this mask that you can put on, and it will potentially reveal things like hidden walls and secrets that you can find. This will also reveal the locations of where the metals and the obelisks are. The obelisks themselves are pretty much always visible. However, the medallions, you may have to do some exploring. When you put on the mask, if they're not close enough to you, or if they're obscured by different obstacles, their location will not be revealed to you. So there is some exploration involved here when you put on the mask. So you are hunting down these medallions, but you are also hunting down these yellow drops of light, and if you acquire enough of these yellow drops of light, it will power up the eagle that accompanies you. And I mentioned the eagle kind of helps with solving puzzles. She also helps with navigating throughout the world, mostly being that you can hang on to the eagle and slowly glide down to the ground. But as you power up your eagle, then you will gain additional flaps, and that will give you a lot of increased elevation. And it reminded me actually a lot of A Short Hike, where every time you acquire an additional flap, it's like suddenly a bunch of different areas are available to you because you can fly up to those areas. And every time you defeat one of the animal spirits, you'll also get an additional flap. I felt like they were kind of stingy with the flap upgrades as far as the eagle goes, because whenever you encounter one of these little puzzles to get some of these yellow orbs, you have to do little tasks, like you have to maybe shoot through a certain amount of rings and like line up your shot, shot. Other times you have to like run around and collect all the little yellow bug clouds. But the awards for these are very minuscule. Like you'll need to be doing a lot of these puzzles in order to finally upgrade an additional flap. And in order to acquire these medallions, it's kind of the same situation with these puzzles. You're just trying to like line up hoops. Other times you're trying to like shoot through fire to light other torches, and it's kind of like a puzzle trying to navigate how you are lining up your shot. Other times your eagle has to grab different stones and drop the stones on switches in order to move panels around. Nothing too complicated. I never needed to look anything up in this game. Just little tiny puzzles that aren't too brainless, but really they don't make you think too hard either. Honestly, the most difficult part about this game is finding the actual medallion locations, just wandering across this big, expansive island, finding those locations. And there are a lot more medallions than there are obelisks in each section of the island. I did encounter a couple of times these little monuments where you can put in your additional medallions. I imagine you get some kind of reward if you gather up all the medallions in each section of the island. I did not do that, however, so I can't tell you what that reward is. I assume it's something maybe like an additional flap or something like that. As you are exploring the island, there's also, if you're like super interested in the lore of this island, there are these monuments that you can read. You also will find these dead bodies scattered throughout the land, and the mask that you acquired allows you to kind of talk to these spirits. The conversation is more one-sided, but at least you can hear like what their final thoughts were. Now, the God Slayer is not just going to be standing idly by and letting you purify his island that he worked so hard to corrupt. Basically, he will send his corrupted animal spirits out to attack you and the eagle. If you've ever played Bowser's Fury, it's kind of like that, where there will be this giant red stormy cloud, this orb, that will slowly increase in size, and if you encounter one of these giant red clouds, then basically all sense of gameplay stops, where your eagle will get blown away and you have to do a little bit of a stealth section in order to recover your eagle. It's actually kind of creepy because you can see exactly where the giant corrupted animal spirit is looking at, because it has this giant red beam, and so if you're standing still, it can't sense you unless it walks up close enough to you. Other times it will just be looking around, and you kind of have to hide behind objects in order not to be seen if you want to continue moving. It plays this really scary music too, and basically, yeah, you're just trying to reach your eagle that got blown away. This was interesting the first couple times, but after a while, it just became tedious, much like Bowser's Fury. For a game that is all about having you focus on your movement and your momentum and getting a really good flow navigating throughout this world, this stealthy section just completely halts all sense of momentum, because you have to move so slow and you have to stop and you have to wait for the spirits to move by. And it is definitely worth you trying your best to get to your eagle without getting caught by the giant enemy spirit, because this game is fairly forgiving, besides this one aspect where if this corrupted animal spirit catches you, then you are going to lose a ton of these yellow orbs that you've been working so hard to collect in order to acquire another eagle flap to gain that elevation. And it is so punishing in that way, because there's not really a way for you to recollect those orbs. Like, you're gonna drop all those yellow orbs and it will take you a while to gather yourself and then go and pick them all up before they disappear after being on the ground for so long. Now, let's say you actually do make it back to your eagle without getting caught by one of these corrupted animal spirits, then you have to like wipe the corruption off of your eagle. I don't know who thought this was like a really fun, cool idea. Like, oh, I love just wiping corruption off my eagle. Basically like the analog stick controls your hand and you just have to wipe off all the red stuff off of your eagle's chest. Like, yeah, it is kind of cute how you guys snuggle after you wipe all the corruption off your eagle, but who thought that was a fun idea for a game that is all about momentum and movement? Yeah, the stealth sections were probably my least favorite part about this game. It's like by the end, I just groaned anytime that I was consumed by one of these red clouds. Now, I do really like like the design of these corrupted animal spirits. They're all red, and fire is very much a theme here, and they're so creepy, and they're just like twisted takes on regular animals. Basically, after you have purified the 3 obelisks in the section of the island, then you have to like chase and hunt down the corrupted animal spirit to try and purify it. And so it begins with the chase scene where you're just trying to get close enough to shoot all the targets on the corrupted animal while avoiding these fireballs and flames on the ground. This section can run on a bit too long as well, just trying to like catch up to the running corrupted animal spirit. Once you finally do shoot off all the targets on these animal spirits, then in my opinion the most interesting part of the game happens when you actually get to fight these animal spirits, and there are 4 corrupted animal spirits and then the God Slayer. So you're going to be doing 5 big boss battles, and these are exciting because it has more like choreographed attacks that you have to dodge, and you have to like wait for your opening to shoot at one of the vulnerable parts of the animal. And they do a good job mixing up these boss fights as well. Like sometimes you have to do a little bit of platforming, other times you're like having to hide behind walls while it does this giant fiery blast at you. And then once you finally do defeat the boss, the corrupted animal spirit, then you purify it, and then the section of the island has then been purified, and then you go to the next corrupted section of the island. The combat is pretty forgiving. Basically, whenever you do get hit, you get like launched backwards, and then you have to like get yourself back up, and then the attack sequence starts over, so then you just slowly memorize the attacking animations and what you need to do to avoid each attack until the boss finally becomes vulnerable in order for you to shoot it. Other than like these weird stealth sections, this game is super forgiving with the auto target system, and it's not like you have game overs or lives or anything like that. You just get up and you keep trying to fight the boss. So that's pretty much the gameplay loop. Once you purify one of the sections of the island, you kind of know what to expect for the other sections of the island. The only thing that really gets mixed up are these boss fights. As you can imagine, it's not exactly a game that you're going to want to sit and play all the way through in one sitting. The game kind of lends itself to being played in short bursts. Otherwise, it can get fairly monotonous and repetitive. The cel-shaded graphics lend themselves to this game pretty well. I like the designs of the animal spirits, like I mentioned, and the main character themselves. The landscape is pretty interesting, albeit pretty barren as well. Most of the time, you are just going to be running across giant open fields or flapping your wings trying to get up on giant cliffs. Occasionally you will encounter ruins, and these are usually where you'll find the medallions that you'll have to solve puzzles with. The music is very mystical, a lot of throat singing here, other than the actual combat, which can be fairly intense with a lot of heavy drums. Overall, I would say that this game is a nice short distraction. Took me maybe 4 hours just playing through the main game. I didn't go for any of the extra medallions, and I didn't really try to hunt for these yellow orbs because I felt like you needed to collect so many in order to actually be rewarded for them. It's just like one of those smaller indie games that you play in between those giant RPGs, just as a palate cleanser. I didn't think it was amazing. I didn't have a ton of fun playing through it. It's novel enough that it gave me some enjoyment, but I think I'm gonna give this game a 2 out of 5. I think it's okay. It's just pretty one note. Like, you kind of get what you're getting yourself into after the first section, and they don't do a lot to mix it up after that. The final boss battle was pretty cool though, I must admit. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about the Pathless, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!